In this video, we will name the most underrated player in the Premier League.
If you had the opportunity to bring Zubimendi in exchange for Enzo, would you consider that?
No, not now.
Right.
Not now, I wouldn't.
I think he's lying.
I think that probably that question is better.
I don't need to think. I can answer that one. I'm here. Do you know I ended up on a treadmill next to him, and I'm convinced that every time I put it up, he put it up, he won.
So
he won. He's really fast, man. He's really fast.
quick. That's very good.
Way faster than me.
A Premier League footballer against Rory Jennings.
Yeah.
My dad, 74 years old, has never even mentioned Neto.
Well,
Spurs Arsenal played the other day. He went. That Trossard's a good player.
Yeah. There you go. The anecdotal evidence of Flav's old man secures it. Let's vote. What's happening, everyone, and welcome to WHFC, brought to you by Final One Standing, football's ultimate free-to-play eliminator game. On this episode, we're playing a game of Final One Standing to work out who is the most underrated player in the Premier League. Right, chaps, the most underrated player in the Premier League. We've got a process here we're going to go through to work it out. Do it fairly, do it justly, remove all bias. Let's just come up with the correct answer. Fed up with dealing with your tribalism on a weekly basis. Right. We'll start with Enzo Fernandez versus Martin Zubimendi.
Oh.
Tough.
It's kind of tough, but can you really include Enzo Fernandez in this when he cost over 100 million euros?
I think you can. If nothing else, because of your friendship and proximity to me. I haven't been rating him for ages, and I was wrong.
Well, so it is because he's been ineffective, relatively speaking, compared to the price for the last 2 years, and now he's having a decent season. He's now underrated. You can't forget that.
No, I don't think people rate Enzo Fernandez. If I were to ask you, say we weren't playing this game, and I just said to you off the top of your head, Chelsea's three best players. You probably don't even think of Fernandez. Whether he's in that isn't the point. Yeah. You probably just don't even factor him in.
Yeah.
What he's turned into this season, he's actually turned into like the kind of the personality of the team. Like, Moises Caicedo is our best midfielder, no doubt. But what Enzo Fernandez brings to that midfield, it's worth its weight in gold. It's all of the ugly stuff. It's all of the hateful stuff. It's all of the snide stuff. As well as being a World Cup winning footballer, he brings an awful lot to the side. Now, the debate, Fernandez or Zubimendi, is tough because I rate Zubimendi incredibly highly. But I do think it's important to acknowledge Enzo Fernandez's contribution this season.
I don't think he can be labelled underrated, though.
Simply because of the money.
The money and the performances. I get the profile you've just read out in terms of he's the fight, the dirty side, the nasty side, but he needs to do more to even be in a conversation about being underrated. For me, Zubimendi's come in and he's kind of gone under the radar and how important he is for us and how important actually he is for Declan Rice. It's no
coincidence.
Yeah, no coincidence that this season Declan Rice has kicked on and Zubimendi is there. Surprised?
That's surprising, isn't it? Turkey's back in Zubimendi.
So you disagree then? Zubimendi.
Yeah.
What are the chances you saying?
Unbiased. What did you say on your...
You said unbiased.
I'm unbiased, mate. I'm untribal. I'm completely bipartisan.
He came with a big reputation, Zubimendi. It's not like...
I think it was Enzo Fernandez reputation. It was 120 million quid that was, and Argentina
and young player of the year at the World Cup.
Yeah.
There was a lot about him.
And I think the thing with Enzo
half a
is he's
season
been
at Benfica, though,
scoring goals and getting assists this season, and I think that pushes him into a rated category. For Chelsea, he's number one, I think, for goals and assists this year, so 2025. Yeah. You're looking at that, and then you're looking at Zubimendi that's not scoring as many as Enzo Fernandez, but I think what he does for Arsenal, as you guys mentioned, is so important this season. That's why Arsenal are a better team.
Zubimendi never scored goals before joining Arsenal, and was it 2 or 3?
Three in the league.
Yeah, 3 in the league, which is significant for any 6. And I've been frustratingly impressed with.
I think. Do you know what I think? Enzo Fernandez. Where let's use a game that happened fairly recently. The Arsenal coming to Stamford Bridge. It all kind of went a little bit wrong. The partnership between Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo has been at the epicenter of anything good that's happened for Chelsea this season. It hasn't always clicked. It has been a trying relationship at times, and there was a time, to be totally frank, when I didn't think they could even play together. However, Caicedo goes off. Our best midfielder, our best player on the pitch goes off. That could signal capitulation. Chelsea in the past have capitulated in similar circumstances. In fact, it happened at Man United. Sanchez goes off. We effectively gave the game up. This didn't happen here.
But would you not say that was a lot to do with Reece James as well, playing central midfield? Because he was unbelievable in that game.
Reece James was immense, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think Enzo Fernandez was equally brilliant. And the reason that we're talking about James isn't because James wasn't brilliant. He was sensational. But he was playing out of position, and it's noteworthy, and lots of people maybe didn't think he could do it. Enzo Fernandez is just quietly going about being brilliant in that position.
Would you swap if you had the opportunity to bring Zubimendi in exchange for Enzo? Would you consider that?
No, not now.
Right.
Not now. I wouldn't.
I think he's lying.
I think probably that question is better.
I don't need to think. I can answer that one.
That question is probably best answered by us.
Yeah, I'd say so. We're unbiased.
You
These two
really.
idiots.
I mean, if I'm removing my Tottenham hat, I probably would go Zubimendi.
I'd probably say Zubimendi, just because Enzo Fernandez is very, very good in an attacking position, whereas Zubimendi is a 6. Like, that's a rarity in the modern game.
I've never even seen a 6 at Spurs. I don't think. I don't
know what they are.
I don't think it's a possibility at our club.
He's an artist. Zubimendi's an artist.
It's like Eric Dyer, but good. Think of that.
Who?
I'm trying to
The six.
define what a 6 is.
No,
It's
I
like a
do know
good
what
version
6
of Eric
is.
Dyer.
Just saying, I've never seen a good one at Spurs.
I think the big thing with Zubimendi is they can press in a much better way. Like last season, we saw Rice being the guy that was always aggressive with Partey sitting or ever sitting. I think now they can play both ways. That goal against Bayern Munich where Rice intercepts and Zubimendi's pressing high, it just changes the dynamic of the defence. It changes the dynamic of the team. I think that's why he's underrated, because it's made them better. I think Enzo Fernandez is a very, very good footballer, rated footballer in that sort of sphere, but I'd say Zubimendi underrated.
And I lean on Dave here because a few weeks ago I was reading the underlying metrics and Zubimendi's stats for ball winning, interceptions. I've talked about how he's assisted Rice. He's assisted our defence this season too. He's partly, to play for how good we are defensively, the best defence in the world, we were labelled by opposition fans now. He is a big part of that because of how he protects that back four.
Okay, so putting it to a vote, I feel like it's 3-1 Zubimendi. You three are all voting for Zubimendi?
Yeah.
Okay, Zubimendi progresses. Now, sticking to the theme, the most underrated player in the league. Is it Martin Zubimendi or is it Leandro Trossard?
I think easy for me.
Easy.
Trossard, yeah. Zubimendi is a lot closer to the rating he deserves than Trossard has ever been in the past few years. I'd label Trossard probably our best attacker so far this season in totality. Our most efficient in the final third this season. And then even since coming in, if you look at his numbers, this calendar year, he's actually got the most GNA for Arsenal.
And outside looking in at Arsenal, you'd be going, Martinelli is your best left forward, or even Madueke, but actually...
He's made himself undroppable.
Yeah. And now, but it's still, just to answer, given the fact it's relevant to what we're discussing, is I think people outside of Arsenal are still a bit surprised when he starts to some degree, but every time he does, he's effective. He's annoyingly
He's
good.
a moments player, but he has big moments.
At the same time, though, like Martinelli's played his part this season off the bench in really key moments, and I think it's with the Arsenal attackers. I think they're fairly rated. Like you probably say, we know what Saka's like, we know what Martinelli's like. Madueke, we're starting to really know what he's like. Obviously at Chelsea, probably quite poor at Arsenal, he's looked quite good. And Trossard is a very, very good player. 4th goal involvements under Arteta, second behind Saka in the Champions League in goals and assists. Like, I think he's rated. Maybe he's slightly underrated, but I think Zubimendi might be even more underrated than that in terms of importance in this Arsenal team.
I think it's, for me, clearly the best 12th man in the league. Whether he's a starter or not now, because he deserved that spot. But I don't see a 12th man better than him across the league. And he, aside from me or Arsenal fans, I don't see that label put on him. And you lot all know how important it is to have.
I think that in itself is underrated.
12th man.
Yeah. That in itself, I think, is quite underrated because I think he's better than that. I don't see him as a 12th man at all. I think he's a class act. Do you know how I know how good he is? Because every time he performs, it hurts me. Primarily because, do you remember when Arsenal signed Trossard? The reason they signed him was because we pulled their pants down. We got one over on Arsenal. We signed Mudryk. Do you remember? We flew to Poland. We got Mudryk. We were laughing at Arsenal.
Whose pants are down now?
The joke. The joke was on them at the time.
And
as a result, they panic bought Trossard.
Yeah,
and it worked out. Yeah.
I mean, that's how much I've kind of noticed.
Would you say? I'm comparing it to maybe the best of the best, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wasn't underrated. He was one of the best 12th man in the Premier League.
There's a role for
Carnu for Arsenal wasn't underrated, but he was a 12th man for Arsenal.
He's a class.
Will
He's
Tord
such a
and
good
so
finisher.
on.
And also, do you know where I rate him even higher? Last year it went a little bit wrong for him. Do you remember he was involved? Did he get sent off at City?
Yeah.
Then he played the ball all the way back at, I think it was against Bournemouth. Saliba ended up, and it was going a little bit wrong for Trossard. And I think people were getting frustrated with him, and it wasn't happening. He brought it back. It's such a good skill, when it starts, you've got to hold the tide and change the opinion again.
He's got that rough edge about him. He's confident in himself. He'll put himself, about. Pace lacking, but aside from that, he has everything.
Do you know I ended up on a treadmill next to him.
Yeah, how did that go?
What was
Really
what speed?
badly. I
What
don't
speed
like
was he
it.
doing?
I don't like it when people say pace is lacking because I ended up on the treadmill next to him on holiday, and I was like, I'm going to match this geezer, like Arsenal mug.
Yeah.
I started putting it up to whatever he was on, and I'm convinced that every time I put it up, he put it up. He won.
So
He won. He's really fast, man. He's really
very
fast.
quick. That's very
He's
good.
way faster than me.
A Premier League footballer against Rory Jennings.
Yeah, but he won. He won, and he's not.
Why do you keep saying he won like you're surprised?
He was much faster than me,
Obviously
man.
he won.
He was much faster. And apparently he was only, this is the summer before the Euros, he was only taking it easy because he had the Euros coming up.
Warm down.
So, yeah, and I was sprinting my ass off. So yeah,
At
he's
what point
fast,
on
mate.
this treadmill did you think, oh my God, that's Trossard next to me?
Yeah, no, I noticed straight away.
Straight
and I was
away.
like,
Did you
I
pick-
got on there because he was there. So no, he's rapid anyway, I can confirm that. Trossard is the most underrated. Trossard or Zubimendi, vote now. I will vote Trossard.
Yeah, okay, Trossard. Yeah,
I'm going to still stick with Zubimendi, but
Okay, 3-1. Trossard moves on. Okay, this is good. Leandro Trossard versus Pedro Neto. Can I speak first, please?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
good.
I don't think people rate... I feel like you're all immediately thinking Trossard. And if that is the ultimate conclusion, then totally fair enough. But I do think that just think about how good Pedro Neto has been. He is one of our best players, one of our most important players. He is utilised in a very specific way. We make full use of his pace when we can. Good finisher. I think he's been a brilliant signing.
There's a couple of things. There's obviously when he had a massive injury record when he was at
Yeah.
Wolves.
That
So
hasn't
there was a
really
risk attached to him when signing him. I was desperate for him to come to Spurs. Obviously, he chose Chelsea. And of the £1.5 billion that you guys have spent on transfers, you might say that he's probably the best. Like in terms of pound for pound.
One of he's certainly
£60 million.
He's certainly not Axel Disasi.
No, correct. Yeah, no, you're right. But there's been a couple of big successes at Chelsea, like Gusto,
Cole Palmer.
naturally, and Casado in midfield. But he for me stands out. I'm with you.
I think he's a brilliant
I
player.
missed something here.
I think it's not surprising.
Neto's been
to me.
underwhelming since he's gone Chelsea.
but I think
don't agree.
Without a doubt.
recently he's probably been Chelsea's best player.
I
think it's come to a point
How
where
recent are we talking? Because
season.
probably say that this season. You probably say the last 6 games. You'd say that he's been really
Well,
good.
wasn't
for
one of
Chelsea.
those games the one against Tottenham where he comes off and Esteval comes on and the game is won in that moment?
I think he's a big part of why
wasn't he
Chelsea
moved across from right wing to left wing against Arsenal to fit Esteval in? If you're that good,
But I think he's very, very good on both sides. I think
maybe
he's really
he's
good on
so
the
good
right.
that he can play the left.
It's like when Steven Gerrard had to play on the wing. It's not
Yeah.
that he wasn't a better midfielder than Momo Sissoko.
So
It's
what's
that he
what's
could-
Neto's numbers this season? Not great.
6 goal involvements at the moment.
We got the man for the job.
go on.
But I think it's more than that for him. I think what he does for Chelsea, as mentioned, he plays a very specific role, puts the ball in the box, most crosses for Chelsea this season. It's really important to have players like Neto on your side. And I think the biggest thing is Enzo Maresca's used him as a 9 in recent weeks.
Yeah.
I think that shows what he thinks of him as a player.
He's a total footballer.
And-
Across the
and
forward
set
line, he's
pieces.
total
Yeah.
footballer. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you look at it and you think, well, if the manager's rating this guy, at the moment, as a community, we're not rating Pedro Neto. I'd put him in. I'd put him in there.
In terms of this debate, we're not talking about the best player. We're not talking about who's better out of Trossard and Neto. We're talking about who doesn't necessarily get the plaudits that they deserve out of the two. The way that we've all spoken on this video about the brilliance of Trossard, we've all acknowledged quite how good he is.
Not enough people have woken up to Pedro Neto yet. Is that
Yeah, I'm saying we're
might never wake
trailblazers.
up.
We're trailblazers,
I
mate.
might never wake up.
We're trailblazers.
we understand the game.
Nah,
Yeah, mate. Up here.
I'm even talking. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Nah, there's no conversation here.
It's not.
Neto is nowhere near Trossard. Whether you talk at the end of the day, an attack is about numbers, right? The impact in the final third. Trossard has a much bigger impact in the final third. Dave, you're right. Crosses. Chelsea don't have a target man in the box to cross to.
You could
So
argue
what's
that
the plan?
Trossard is better. But
I think it's
I feel
the
like
rated
we know
part,
that
yeah.
he's better.
We agree that he's better. It's the fact that I think
He's underrated.
is nobody's started to see this Pedro Neto. I think at the end of the season he's already scored the same amount of goals as last season. I think he'll beat that. He'll beat his goal involvements for the Premier League over his career. 25 years old, he's coming to that right time. Trossard is at the other end of his career, right, where he's in his prime right now and he's doing it week in, week out. And we're not disputing that, but it's just think Pedro Neto has gone under the radar in terms of his contributions for Chelsea.
Maybe because I rated him so highly early.
Yeah, it's
before
always been
moving to
good.
Chelsea. If I asked all of you 2 years ago, who would you take, Neto or Trossard, including myself, we probably all say Neto.
Yeah.
But as we sit here now and say who's been better over the last 2 years, it's clearly been Trossard. So how is this a debate?
But because we're sort of juggling with semantics, aren't we? Because we all probably are saying Trossard has been consistently better.
Yeah.
But it's about how he's rated by the masses.
If I were to say this to you, and it's honestly not.
Do you see how you lot are talking about Neto? This is overrated
and
more than
underrated?
Flipped it. Love that.
I think if you want an Arsenal fan, you'd be able to kind of.
I like Neto.
I think the most important player.
I don't like him anymore.
Trossard, Pedro Neto would be at a very conservative estimate the fourth most important player at Chelsea. Like if I were to name a team that has to play, I think Caicedo is probably the most important player that we get on the pitch. After that, you probably go Reece James. Then
Palmer, Cucurella, that's 4 already.
I think you go Neto ahead of.
Don't say any of the 3. You're
I
going to ruin your own reputation.
No, I think you go Neto.
fifth.
Like this season, like you can't say Cole Palmer this season.
Okay, but you know Cole
Like,
Palmer.
having Pedro Neto on the pitch is so integral to everything that we do. We can't stretch a line without him.
Can you say with certainty that Pedro Neto's more important than Esteval? When you lot want to see Esteval starting more, so he can't be 4th. He's not even 5th or 6th.
If we can get there, right? Trossard is better. Neto's perhaps more underrated.
There's no way.
You have to agree
He's
with.
doing sort of equations and stuff as well. Like
We're balancing it out as well, aren't we?
I mean, yeah, he's like acting it.
We're not saying
Mime.
Trossard isn't better.
Yeah.
We're just saying he's more rated.
Yeah, look, Flav's Amdram deserves some sort of acknowledgement here. The amateur
my
dramatics, you really
argument
performed that,
is-
Matt.
Cheers.
Neto shouldn't even be rated for what we all thought he would be.
But we're rating him at Chelsea. At Wolves, I think we all rated him.
Yeah.
We all wanted him.
But he hasn't
I think
taken
at
the step up.
Chelsea's a kind of a different equation.
Does Leandro Trossard over the country? Do you think people acknowledge his brilliance? Do you think overall people go, "God, that Trossard is a good player"?
I think some think he's good.
Now, yeah.
You're having a pint in Sunderland. Do you think that the before they head off and sing about Roker Park, do they go, "God, that geezer Trossard's a player"? I reckon they do. Yeah. Whereas I don't think
You'll
anyone
get
does
some of
that.
that.
I don't think if Villa fans before they're heading off to the Holt end, they're not going, "That Neto's a good player." They're not.
That's because everyone's given up on him, though. The hype has died.
My dad, 74 years old, has never even mentioned Neto. As an Arsenal player, the other day he went, "That Trossard's a good player."
There you go. The anecdotal evidence of Flav's old man secures it. Let's vote.
Absolutely incredible.
Let's
What have we
vote. Is it? Also, remember how you vote here. It'd be very disrespectful to call Flav's dad a liar. So, is it Leandro Trossard or is Flav's dad a liar? Turkish.
Sorry, Flav.
Okay, Trossard is 1-0 up. I'm going to vote Pedro Neto. Flav?
I have to, based on the principle of the question, yeah.
Yeah, same principle.
Neto.
That's insane.
Neto progresses into a round against Danny Welbeck. Pedro Neto versus Danny Welbeck. Nobody rates Danny Welbeck anywhere near as highly as they should. Nobody in the country.
Correct.
Nobody ever talks about him the way they should. Should be
No.
talking about he's a better player than Ollie Watkins by a mile. He should be playing for England ahead of Ollie Watkins by a mile. He should still go to the World Cup next year. I don't see why anybody doesn't have them, including Thomas Tuchel, in their England team.
I'm sorry, Dave, but this is why stats are...
Rubbish. All right. Well, so because he scored the second most non-penalty goals this season behind Erling Haaland. Oh, that doesn't mean anything, though, does it? It means nothing.
It means everything. Well
It's
done.
about passion.
It means everything. It means everything. You're right. I'm wrong. I think at his age, the fact that he's even and this sort of comeback redemption arc for having to pretty much bombed out or forgotten at Manchester United to go to Brighton and consistently put up decent numbers, good numbers, but also having his efficacy on the pitch is like it's underrated.
He makes them so much better.
He does.
They're so much better on the inside. Yeah, 35.
35 years old and legitimately could have a place on the plane.
He should have.
He should have, but generally everyone thinks of Danny Welbeck and goes,
Mate, it's the variety of goals that he's capable of scoring as well. Like, what's he not good at? He's good at running in behind. He's good as a one-on-one. He's got a clever finish. You think of the goal he scored for England against Sweden. He's good in the air. He's just a good centre
Would you
forward.
agree with me that Brighton have the best recruitment policy in the league, probably in the country, maybe Europe?
Arguably world, yeah.
Yeah, in Europe. and they don't need to replace Danny Welbeck. They don't look at that as a priority position. They just know that they can rely on him. The amount of talent that's come through that football club, half of it is your football, and Trossard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Danny Welbeck, we don't have to worry about that.
The fact that they're not trying to replace him demonstrates quite how brilliant he is.
this season, though. With the
the
idea,
young
maybe in a
kid, they're
few
really
years'
young,
time.
though,
Are they playing? Are they playing?
He scored this weekend, didn't he?
Really young kids. They spent a lot of money on them as well, which is rare for them, didn't they?
He is
Are they Dutch? Are they Dutch kids? Yeah. Anyway. But look, I think Welbeck should go to England. I think Welbeck should 100% be on the plane to America. That alone makes him incredibly underrated, I think, because people would
England's options are not firing as they should.
No, but they're not, I agree. But people would,
they're sub.
people would say,
And another
Ollie
year
Watkins.
you'll have Tony and Watkins there firing, and we wouldn't even talk about Welbeck.
But Tony and Watkins aren't better than Welbeck. No. They're not. They're just not.
As strikers, they've had seasons that.
Sorry, Tony and Watkins aren't better than Welbeck.
The thing with Watkins at the moment, he's having a really bad season. So it's harsh to judge him just on how many games they played this year. But last season before, top
I
forward.
didn't even judge him then. You know when Manchester United were linked with Ollie Watkins
Arsenal?
last year?
It was Arsenal
at one
more than
point,
United,
Arsenal-
wasn't it, in January?
Yeah.
At all times, and I was getting it massively in the neck. But at all times, I was like, wait, no. Arsenal are not a Watkins club. Manchester United are not a Watkins club. Watkins, and this sounds like I'm being sneering, and I really don't want it to. I mean this with honest admiration. He is nothing more than a very good Premier League footballer. That's it.
Which is absolutely fine.
Which I would love to be that. Which is absolutely
come
fine.
on, Ollie Watkins.
He is not an international footballer. He's not a player capable of leading the line for Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal. He's not that. He's just a very good.
Nor is Welbeck.
He is the likes of. History will see Ollie Watkins as similar to a Kevin Davis type centre forward who had a very good Premier League career. That's what he is.
He carried Villa into the Champions League. He scored all the goals for Villa to get into Europe.
Kevin Davis had a very good
Kevin Davis.
Kevin Davis, Kevin Phillips at Sunderland. He scored.
Kevin Phillips.
No, you've gone from one to the other.
Come on.
Just good Premier League player.
Winner, Kevin Davis.
30
Kevin
goals.
Phillips.
Good Premier. Yeah, one season. One standout season. Never ever an international player, and probably more suited to that purgatory between the Championship and the Premier League.
You're doing way too harsh.
This
feels like one
way
Olympic.
too harsh. Yeah,
How
come
long
on,
have you been
Rory.
peddling this? This feels like something you've been peddling for a while.
Really. I've been saying that he's just not a very good player.
The Premier League type
I don't think that Danny
he's
Welbeck
not
and Ollie
underrated.
Watkins, they actually don't play the same sport. Danny Welbeck is an incredibly clever Premier League centre forward who has done it at the highest level, led the line for Manchester United and Arsenal, scored goals for Manchester United against Bayern Munich in the European Cup.
I mean,
Ollie Watkins is a good Aston Villa player.
problem with that, Rory, is 10 league goals once in his career, Danny Welbeck. Obviously, injuries and knees have been a problem. I agree with that. I'm not saying that's not. Watkins has scored quite a lot of goals in the Premier League.
I think he's legitimately underrated, Welbeck.
By a mile.
Yeah, but it is a lot of it's down to his lack of game time, down to injuries, and lack
the
of
more you
exposure.
talk, the more he's getting overrated, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, I'm falling into
I
this.
feel like
You think he doesn't deserve to be?
Oh, he deserves it because Neto shouldn't even be here. So my decision was made when Neto went through last man.
What did you think of him when he was Arsenal?
I mean, he used the words lead the line. I mean, that's disingenuous because he was never good enough for Man United or Arsenal Football Club. Good squad player, clever player, productive on his day or form across 8 games in a season. But he's never proven it across a Premier League season. One, because of injuries, but
he was definitely good enough to play for when he was at Manchester United. He probably wasn't good enough.
When we signed him,
But
I was furious.
He was better than a lot of players that played.
I was furious
Better player
we
than
signed him.
Lacazette played.
Man United
better
were-
player than Lacazette. Much better. Danny Welbeck twice player than Lacazette.
But Man United were in their pomp buying Van Persie.
Yeah, no. He wasn't.
Welbeck.
When Welbeck was very unfortunate that the time that he was playing for Manchester United were definitely the best team in the country, one of the best teams in Europe. I'm not saying that Danny Welbeck was good enough to lead the line for Manchester United then.
But I think he would have been if Fergie had sticked around for another 5 to 10 years. I think Danny Welbeck would have been a key part of
Better
it.
than countless players that they've had since.
I can't put. Listen, his best performance. That man might be able to jump in here. Was in centre midfield against Real Madrid. Was it Real Madrid?
It was a man marking job, but he still moved into the attacking line. It wasn't.
But that was his biggest performance of his career. It was a nullifying job. He was a good player.
But you can't disrespect that because Park Ji-sung made an absolute career out of that.
Of course,
He's a
100%.
Superstar.
But we're comparing him to goal scorers, and he's never been that. He's never been I don't really like Watkins too much, but.
It now feels that we've got overrated Danny Welbeck and underrated Danny Welbeck, and it feels like we might need to come into the middle and it be rated.
I'm overrating him, but it's because I'm performing a service for football in general. Mate, the scale has tipped so badly in Welbeck's against Welbeck that I'm just trying to go to even it up a bit. I'm doing Flav's.
You said all that mental stuff about Ollie Watkins, so now your opinion really. I'm kind of with you, Rory, but now I'm like, do I want to be with you? I'm not sure. I'm like, such a mental. That little tirade about Ollie Watkins was one of the most mental things I've ever heard.
Completely accurate, though.
No, it ain't accurate. It's not. And I'm sitting on there and I'm going, Jesus, he's good.
You know,
good at this.
You know when we get the message saying the show's out, you need to make sure your comment is, review what you just said here.
Yeah.
I stand by every word of it.
But by the same token, you're
football.
being really dismissive about Welbeck.
No, Welbeck's through.
Oh.
Okay, let's vote. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still arguing. Sorry, mate.
What about you?
Okay, let's vote. Sorry, oh, really? I don't know why I'm arguing so much then. Okay, all those in favour of Danny Welbeck, say aye.
Over Neto.
Right,
He's underrated.
Ollie Watkins, I'll vote
Okay,
for.
which now means
Kevin Davies.
it's Danny Welbeck versus there ain't nobody better than Jean-Philippe Mateta.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a strange one with him because he's clearly good. And he's just broke into the French team, scored, which is probably the most talented clutch of players on earth. And Palace fans adore him. And I think if you asked all of us if we'd want him to sign for our football club, there would at least be a moment's pause.
Which proves that he's not underrated.
Not for me. Straight in.
Without question.
This summer should
not
have
having him?
Should have bought him. No, should have bought
Oh,
him.
right, great.
100%. I think he's a very, very good player, and he's a player that's horrible to play against. And he scores goals.
He's like
what more do you want?
Mate, he's big goals, variety of goals as well.
He's like 4 times as good as Richarlison as well. He's leading number.
Minimum of 4.
4 times
Nice.
as good.
4, no, good number.
Mate, my only issue with this, it isn't that I don't rate Jean-Philippe Mateta. It's almost going back to what you just said. If you asked all of us here, Chelsea, Manchester United, Arsenal, Tottenham, if you asked us all here, we all say yes.
So in the summer, Mateta was never really linked, right? But there was big money spent on Sesko. Spurs had a number 9 issue. Liam Delap came in.
Both of them, yeah.
Gokeres and Mateta was just not mentioned, and it wasn't even like there wasn't even any narrative around it. So surely that would mean he's underrated.
Liverpool bought 2 as well. It's second at
Yeah.
3K. So
Yeah.
I'd go with that logic. I think that makes sense. A year ago, I was asked about Mateta. I said nah, because I want someone more ready-made.
Do you think it's because he's playing for Palace that there's this sort of weird? I know Eze is a standout, but he's been class for years. But there's this kind of snobbery about because people were surprised when he made the French squad. And that surprise is why he's potentially underrated.
But it fits it really well, right? Because France always need Olivier Giroud type player, and that's no disrespect to Olivier Giroud or Jean-Philippe Mateta, but you've got all these star forwards that like the ball into feet. You need someone to be horrible. And score goals.
And if you were describing Mateta as a player, some might say just a bit of a lump.
I'd say a target man,
I think
but also
he's
good in behind. I think he's quite also
Think of the goal that he scored at the
for sure.
Emirates.
And that's part of the problem is that his style of play often comes with it kind of a level of critique that the more sort of flashy, sort of flamboyant strikers get away with. Yeah. But in terms of how effective they are on the pitch, Mateta's up there, isn't he?
You look at the FA Cup run, how many times do we see goals where Palace would just lob the ball up to Mateta, they'd win the second ball, one of the wing-backs would overlap and they'd score. Yeah. And you look at since Oliver Glasner took charge of Crystal Palace, he's behind Haaland and Isak in terms of goals scored. Like, he's a very, very good goal scorer. Yeah. And I think that might be why we could class it as underrated, because we don't put him anywhere near the bracket of those players. And we should do, because he's done it consistently for 2 years.
If you really think about it, I think he starts at Arsenal, starts at Tottenham and starts at United.
And Chelsea.
I think João Pedro's class. I think...
But
there's an argument. He's a different type of player.
I think he starts as a 9, definitely.
Right. Pedro. But it's not a discussion, right? So why weren't all of our clubs in for him in the summer? Why was there no discussion about it?
Do you think that there might be the politics going on at Palace? Like they lost,
couldn't.
Yeah. But it will happen.
But even as fans, we weren't discussing it. Like you said a year ago, you was offered Mateta and you was like not having it.
And that's...
But Gokeres, you was doing backflips for.
Something like that. No, you could call it that. But it's the numbers. It's a numbers game, isn't it? When you're looking at strikers, you want a striker that bags 20 and
he's got 97.
Do you think he's ready to step up? Do you think if he had the opportunity to play at a club, like we've seen very good players do very well at certain clubs, the shirt at a club like Manchester United or Tottenham, it weighs heavy. Do you think Mateta would be ready to step up?
Needs to be the right style. I think with Crystal Palace, because they play through him, it's how he plays. Not saying that he couldn't score goals for Arsenal, because Arsenal crossed the ball quite a lot. So that'd work. Chelsea would work probably because you need someone in there. Yeah. Then all the rest of the players can feed off that. Manchester United, been their best when they played direct.
Yeah.
That would work as well.
Same time.
Tottenham again. Yeah, you've kind of lost that idea of playing balls out into the channels that you had in the first 3 games and looked really good. Mateta chases that. Mateta might win a few of those. You build from that point.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely a space for this type of forward in all the top sides. Arsenal would be the one potentially would be on the bench, but then you could play certain games and so forth. Gyökeres starts some. They could even start together. I think he's a high level striker. And you look at how many games he's played at this point in his career, not that many. This is the first kind of run of where he scored loads of goals. He's kind of in his prime right now. He's the type of player that you'd want today. Yeah. And he'd last for 3 to 4 years and then you might move on from him.
You're asking if the shirt would weigh heavy on him. I think if you remember, the story he told when he made his French debut, where he was in the changing room and when he arrived and he said, I'm going to play for France one day. And he said that Zaha laughed in his face. Zaha has since said that wasn't true and now wants to fight him or something. I don't know. But
who wins?
Mateta. Yeah. Come on. But the fact is, my point is that he had the belief that he was at that stage arriving at Palace without any kind of fanfare, furore about the signing, has then said, I'm going to start in this French side, and then did it. I don't think playing for a big club is going to be an issue.
Yeah, I think it's good point.
Taking away your PR for Welbeck in the last round, they are both underrated, right? They are both underrated.
Yes.
But who would each of you take in their prime? Prime Danny Welbeck and so far prime Mateta.
I think this is probably his prime when Danny Welbeck.
And it's probably prime
Right
Mateta.
Mateta is the answer.
I think Mateta is the answer.
Mateta.
Yeah.
I think he's got a more all-round game. He can run the channels, get in behind. He can come to feet. He can link it up. He's physical, and I'd argue he's not a lump because he's got a bit of technique about him in his finishing.
So that's what I'm saying. It's how he'll be described. I think he is a lump, but there's
okay.
He's a techie lump.
He's a techie lump. Yeah, and there's a place for them for sure. And that, I mean, you saw the goal he scored against Arsenal. I wouldn't even know how to describe that.
Yeah.
Chip.
It was a chip, but
chip.
No. It was more direct to a chip. It was sort of you can't chip it into the top corner, can you?
Yeah.
No. Chip has to. I don't know if this will make the video, but a chip definitely has to come down.
That's a little bit of length on it.
Certain angulation.
It weren't a chip. It was something else. It was a special goal.
Fair enough. I think we've concluded that Jean-Philippe Mateta is the most underrated player in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Obviously, I put these players on a card. Mm-hmm. Is there anybody that I didn't put on? So we've obviously discussed Zubimendi, Enzo Fernandez, Leandro Trossard, whoever else.
There is one.
Would you like to put anyone forward? Just
an
honourable mention moment?
Just to sort of... Madueke. Do you remember when he signed from Chelsea to Arsenal? Yeah. Arsenal fans, I think they were putting murals up and like...
a petition, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was saying, get Arteta out, he signed him.
He got vandalised. No.
He got vandalised. This is a guy. I mean, I don't have to even talk about how stupid that is. But Madueke is legitimately, and I hate to say it, and he came through Spurs' academy, went to PSV, signed for Chelsea, then Arsenal. So he's like very much not Spurs, but class, absolute class player, and I think underrated in the most extreme. And he'll have an incredible career somewhere.
Hope you're right.
You lot don't deserve him because you hated him.
Yeah, if we talk about what we.
You had a better suggestion though.
What was that?
Let's not get into it.
Better suggestion than him.
Marino.
Bournemouth.
Oh.
Central midfield.
Oh, Tyler Adams.
Yeah, Tyler Adams.
I generally think he's been one of the best midfielders in the league for his job, winning the ball back. Probably put Caicedo above him, maybe, but
Tons
he has
of
been
pressure on him.
so good.
The Iriola system.
Yeah, and he's a player that looked quite like the Premier League was a bit too quick for him, but this season he's been phenomenal. Also, Senesi at Bournemouth, I think one of the best ball-playing centre-backs in the league. The through ball for a few weeks ago was ridiculous.
Been there for years and was dropped out of the side because they had Dean Howson and has come back in and is like, maybe he shouldn't have ever been dropped.
No, he dictates their attack, which is mental to say about a centre-back.
Can we add another Bournemouth player?
Go on,
Alex Scott.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Marcus Tavernier.
I mean, yeah.
You love Bournemouth, don't you? You're thinking of retiring together?
I think.
I know what.
Sounds all right.
Yeah, close. Quite nice.
Nice beach.
Yeah, lovely.
Igor Thiago?
Alex Scott, I like it. Alex Scott in midfield.
Thiago?
Yeah, Igor Thiago. Definitely. Probably rated now, but
Yeah.
very, very good.
Yeah. No, I think.
Well, this has been emotional.
Marino.
Mikel Marino isn't underrated.
No, he's not underrated.
He just wants to talk about Arsenal players.
No, I just said Igor Thiago.
Trevino's the only time you said anything positive about any players when they're an Arsenal.
I'll watch the tapes back.
Right, we're going to end it there. Jean-Philippe Mateta is the most underrated player in the Premier League and this week's final one standing. Now, did we get it right? Let us know in the comments and remember to click the link in the description to play Final One Standing. Thanks again for watching WHFC. If you want to watch us rank the best centre-backs in the Premier League, click the video that's on screen now. And if you enjoy the show, then please subscribe to the channel to never miss an episode. This show was brought to you by William Hill, 18+. Please gamble responsibly.